guys, Chris here. As you can see, I'm set up for the night. I'm going to spend the night out, and it's not raining. So I'm expecting a fairly cool evening, and this is going to be a big test for me for my underquilt, which is rated for 5 degrees Celsius, and I'm having a great time with it so far. It's been awesome. I'll never go back to using pads and stuff like that. Onward and upwards from here, I guess. But anyhow, I just want to do a quick little video on my fire kit. And everything that you see here is pretty much everything that I carry for fire. So let's have a quick peek at it. Well, I guess first and foremost we have your good old ferro rod. This is a 5" by 1/2" ferro rod. I've just added a bungee cord to it, and or shot cord, whatever you want to call it, and some fluorescent duct tape. So should I drop it or lose it, then it is a little easier to find. And also the bungee cord, you can loop that through a belt loop or over your belt, and then fasten it over itself like this. And it's possible for it to come off, but unlikely. So this is my go-to tin. Say I'm using an ember to start a bird's nest, then this would be what I would go to first. It's just a tin which I can use to make char cloth, but my char cloth I make at home in a bigger cookie tin, so I'll make a big batch at once. And there's a little bit of eastern white cedar bark shredded up that I could add. This way I know that I've got some at least that's dry. Char cloth, let's see, some charred wood that I've just stuck in from my fire and snuffed out, and some other stuff that isn't as charred but is charred on one end at least. So just about any of my ignition sources would work for this or this. Anything that's really in here. You could use your ferro rod, shower that with sparks, and then pick out a couple of pieces that have caught a spark and fire that into your bird's nest, blow that into flame, and then snuff out the rest. That's a pretty standard item, I guess, charred materials. So that's one. And this is a backup source, or like backup materials and some ignition sources. So if I was having a hard time with a fire, then one of these items may be able to help. This is just a little baggie of char cloth, a little ziploc bag that helps keep moisture, humidity, and should my bag take a dunking, this will hopefully prevent it from being wet. Good old-fashioned Bic lighter. One little tip that you can do is with a small cable tie or a zip tie, tighten that right up around in here so that the fuel button can't be pushed down, so that when it comes time to use it, it has fuel. There is a fuel tab, so that's just like a hard cake fuel tab. You can bust that up with your knife or with a rock or stick or whatever, or I'm pretty sure you could almost break a piece of that off just by breaking it in your hands, and use that to help start a stubborn fire. Like say maybe on a day like this where it's raining on me. Some more charred wood and little various pieces of charred materials in there, just little leftovers and whatnot. There's some pieces of pine resin with little fragments of birch bark and cedar and stuff like that stuck to it. All little things that'll help with a fire. One item here that I picked up, the idea from Larry Roberts. He suggested milkweed, and whoop. So this is something that's very common in my area. I just collect a little bit of the silk or the little seedlets, and that's a really good flash tinder. So you could add that into a bird's nest, and that'll help ignite quickly and help catch little heavier fiber materials. And then each milkweed pod has one of these little, I don't know what it is, but it's like an individual piece inside of the pod, and this will catch a spark with a flint and steel, a ferro rod, and it will carry us an ember. So you could actually use these in your bird's nest to ignite your bird's nest. And you know, that works with magnifying glass and everything else as well. And then the actual seed pod just kind of helps contain everything and keeps it wrapped up in its own little kind of cocoon. And there's just a couple of strike anywhere matches that should I need to, I can strike this and then ignite a piece of charred wood and then plop that into my bird's nest and blow that to flame. And then this little tin here, this is what all my pellets came in for my pellet gun. And this container actually works really, really well for this. You just take those little cotton makeup pads, the rounds, and I just use old candle stubs, melt them down, and then add what I figure is approximately 10% paraffin lamp oil. And then really all you got to do is just saturate them, and I just did them right inside the tin, and then squeezed out any serious excess, and then just let them harden up, and then you can peel out one at a time, or this one, it's coming out two at a time, but they're easy to separate, like they come apart fairly well. So these are a standby, like an old standby. So those are just like something that you'd use to help with a stubborn fire as well. Damp, wet conditions. Cruddy tinder sources, or you've been slogging all day long, hiking, canoeing, and you get to camp, and if you're not using a camp stove, then you want a fire pronto. So that would be one way to do it. And then we go to our trusty magnifying glass. This would be another source of ignition. Just about any of my items there that are in my tins, you can use with a magnifying glass on a nice day, which we don't have today, but still, it stays in the kit. And then this item here is something I'd kind of come up with, and after seeing somebody else's video on making this actual wick, candle, match type thing. I don't know what you'd really call it, but it's just basically jute twine that I've doubled over and did reverse wrap 2-ply cordage, and then taken 3 of those and then braided those all together, and then dipped that whole thing right into the same candle wax and paraffin lamp oil mixture that I use in those cotton makeup pads, and then hung it up, let it dry. And then this is an old Bic lighter that was dead, so I just drilled a hole through off to the side, and it's tied on there good. And so now you've got a dead Bic, but there's still a ton of strikes left in this thing, and it can be used for a lot of these items, like those charred materials, this for example, and those makeup pads as well, right? So actually I have one of those out already, so you just kind of get some of this really nice fluffy stuff. I find holding it kind of away from me and then firing the sparks up into it work about the best. There. So that would be a great item for if you have a stubborn fire or if you want to fire immediately. So you can hear somebody back there has a there's a truck stop about maybe a half a mile away from here, and somebody, I guess, has a pretty spiffy horn and some awesome timing. So back to this this jute twine that's been braided up and then soaked in that paraffin kind of material. All you have to do is just kind of fuzz it up, break it down to some really nice fine fibers, just like when you pull those cotton pads apart, you know, it's got some really nice fine fibers. And then same deal, I just try to hold it above it and fire the sparks right into it, and it doesn't usually take too long, but sometimes it does. I'm gonna make a liar out of me today. I'll switch hands maybe. Maybe I don't have fine enough fibers. I swear that this actually does work, and quite well actually. But, you know, Murphy's Law showing up. There. After a little bit of work, you can see that it does actually work, and it burns quite well. I mean, that's more than enough there to, you know, to cup over underneath a bird's nest, and you know, dry out your bird's nest, and you know, a great source of ignition if you need it. And you know, it's not like a Bic lighter where you have to hold it and it's hard to get it into areas. You know, you can kind of take and just kind of lay it in there if you want. I mean, it's it's fairly wind resistant as well. And it's, you know, water resistant as well too. You know, like you can take this and wrap it all up, and then, you know, with your Bic lighter, just kind of heat that up with the Bic lighter, and it seals itself all up, and the wax kind of comes to the surface and helps prevent any moisture from getting inside. And you know, as you saw, you can use this for sources of ignition as well. So there you go. I also do have a flint and steel kit, which I'm not carrying today, and of course a bow drill, which I've been working on and trying to perfect, or as close to perfecting as I can get it, I guess. I should have brought it today. This would be an excellent day to try it out. But anyways, that's been my spiel on fire and ignition sources. See ya. Bye.